Hello everyone, my name is Pires Ting. I am a postdoctorate fellow at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and Director of International Relations at Lógica Universalis Association. Currently, I am co-organizing, along with Professor Genevieve Bézieux, a workshop about love and logic at the Orthodox Academy of Crete in Greece, and a talk titled Love Focused on Reason and Logic, the most way to attain universal love in society. I am also an artist and a PhD in art history and criticism. I graduated in art history and archaeology at Sorbonne University in Paris. Simultaneously with my academic studies, I was a copyist at the Louvre Museum. In today's talk, we will explore the features of love and logic as conceptualized by the Chinese philosopher Mozi, or Master Mo, who presents a precise experience based on ethical and political views of society's amelioration. Universal love has become the cornerstone of his thought, to which all logical action will refer. When Chinese philosophy became part of a dialogue with the West in modern times, the long-forgotten Moist logic was rediscovered to support the claim that Chinese philosophies also demonstrated an analytical mindset. Mozi's notion of equity in love is therefore not anchored on unreasoned feelings. It rather consists of impartial care based on an epistemological system. According to the philosophical tradition that has come to be known as Mohism, the problem of love based on sentiments is that it results on the benefit of one's own affective community in the detriment of others, which is the cause of discrimination, disharmony, and chaos. Perhaps the most significant feature of the Moist philosophy of love is that it places reason as the only way to attain universal love, because he regards human beings as possessing certain basic cognitive abilities that enable them to draw sound and logical conclusions from premises and to arrive at the right course of action. Mozi is one of the most important of the ancient Chinese thinkers, also known as Hua the Chinese civilization. He lived about a century after Confucius' death, becoming the most reactive thinker to Confucianism. Many consider him as the first real philosopher of ancient China, even if Confucius' Analects inaugurates the classical period of Chinese philosophy. The most famous phrase and most original contribution associated with Mozi is universal love, Zhenai, also translated as impartial caring. While the Confucian ideal of love in the sense of humaneness, goodness, or benevolence requires a gradation of love centered upon one's household, for Mozi, the distinction of caring is the beginning of all social discourses. The general good concerns him more than private interests. Thus, what is commonly translated as the doctrine of universal love is presented as moral doctrine. What dominates is the social order more precisely. Such a social order leads us to think about the interpersonal and intercultural interactions that shape the behavior of individuals in the Semitic areas. Confucian doctrine endorsed primarily relationships between parents and children, thus laying heavy emphasis on family. From Mozi's perspective, loving one's family first and the pursuit of personal benefits led humanity to chaos, as it separates people and prevents them from being more empathetic with other nations. That is why Mozi spent his lifetime propagating his doctrine of love without distinction, against any difference that sets people apart in social relationships. It consists of opposing the Confucian idea of filial piety as a prescription to achieve a harmonious state. Mohism was a product of the social context to which it was applied. The warring states, before China was united, a time when several feudal lords were competing for supremacy. Mozi inherited the assumption that the dukes of Zhou were morally and intellectually superior. That is because, inspired by Confucian philosophy, historians held up ancient kings as models of virtue and wisdom. During Mozi's time, there is a lot of warfare and misery. Philosophers started thinking about how they could go back to the time ruled by the Zhou, when there was peace and prosperity. The spring and autumn and the Warring States era was a period of great cultural and intellectual expansion. This phenomenon led to the flourishment of several thinkers, exposing various academic and ideological genres. They were collectively called the 100 schools of thought, due to the broad range of ideas discussed. The time was so prolific that it became known as the Golden Age of Chinese philosophy. Mozi is more than a pacifist. He is the first philosopher who have the record of and that has a logical prescription for how we could achieve a prosperous society. His school became extremely popular in his own day and age, getting several followers, so much that Mencius, another Confucian thinker who lived a generation after Mozi, would lament that the words of Mozi are present in everyone's lips. Mozi is also one of the first philosophers who emphasizes treatment on people. He stands out for having specific prescriptions based on logic. His doctrine of love without discrimination, under the will of heavens, carries an inherent tendency of reducing social distinction and equalizing subordinate relationships. Mozi advocates for impartiality in treatment because, according to him, filial piety would only work in a unipolar world. In a multipolar world, however, as they were living, Mozi's idea seems to work better. No ruler would treat another state worse than his own. In terms of political governance, Mozi, however, is not advocating for the erasure of class distinction as we could compare to socialism. He rather advocates that people who practice universal love should be placed in positions of authority in each governing state. If that happens, no state should hurt another one. No one should ever engage in offensive warfare.